Hi, Shane here. You're watching Sam for God, and this is Mark. Check her out.
So hi guys, how you doing? Today I want to do my little book wrap up for September of 2020. Yes, I know we're currently on the 25th of October 2020, so pretty late with my wrap up, but I read some really good books last month. Not very many, but the ones that I did read I really enjoyed for the most part, so I thought I'd do this video anyway. It's going to be quite short hopefully. So these are the books that I read. There's 5 of them here. I also listened to an audiobook, so 6 books altogether. Without further ado, let's get to them. So the first book is an Agatha Christie novel, The Mysterious Affair at Styles. I believe this is actually #1 in the Poirot series. I'd heard really good things about it and I did really enjoy it. It's a very good mystery novel. It's a typical Agatha Christie novel. I can understand why it's one of the most popular ones. Hastings, and if you don't know who Hastings is, he's another, like, I guess famous character in Agatha Christie novels, and I normally prefer the books where he's in them because his relationship with Poirot is very fun to read about. Like, they have a lot of banter going on, and Hastings features in this quite a lot, so it's fun to read like his banter with Poirot in it, and he's involved in it quite a bit. The mystery is really interesting. Like, there's a bunch of people in a house, obviously, as you can see, Affair at Styles, and it's just like another phenomenal Agatha Christie novel. Like, I gave it 4 out of 5 stars only because there are other Agatha Christie novels that I prefer over this, but it was a really good one and I would recommend it. Next we have another Agatha Christie novel, and this one is called Peril at End House. I think this might be, like, I don't know, the 6th or 7th one in the series of Poirot novels. This one's significantly shorter than the other one. This one's only 240 pages. So most Agatha Christie novels that come in this format are roughly about 300 pages, but yeah, this one's a bit shorter. I really like this one. So this one is like, again, Hastings is involved in this. Poirot and Hastings are on like a little trip somewhere in the UK, and then they meet this woman randomly who's there as well, and then Poirot, being the phenomenal detective that he is, straight away notices something a bit weird about the situation, and then it goes from there. I thought this was so clever. The solution to the murder was so clever. I was on edge the whole time. I read this in like a day and a bit. So many twists, so many interesting characters. I really enjoyed this. I gave this 5 out of 5 stars. This is translated from Korean and it's by one of my favorite authors that I've discovered in 2020. Han Kang is a Korean author. I read her book The Vegetarian earlier this year, and it's probably one of my favorite books that I've read this year. Like, it was such a great book. You can see more of my thoughts on it if you watch my previous book wrap-ups from this year. I think I might have read it in May. But yeah, since I read that, I've been really keen to read more by her. And yeah, I read this white book, and it's like a collection of little, not stories, but just little snippets. It's very similar to a book by Maggie Nelson called Bluets that I read a couple of years ago. Bluets is a phenomenal book, and this is a similar vibe, except this one is about the color white instead of the color blue, if that makes sense. And it's a little bit different in terms of its writing, obviously, but as you can see, like, it's just like little paragraphs on each page, and again, this was so beautifully written, so mesmerizing. I just wish I could read this in Korean. Obviously I don't speak Korean, nor can I read Korean, but I always feel like with books like this, if you read them in the actual language, you would get more out of them. But even so, even with the translation, it's a great translation. I thought it was such a beautiful book. I underlined so many parts of it. Like, going through it now, there's bits where I'm just like, oh my god, this bit gave me chills. Like, it's just very eerie, very nicely written. It's very thought-provoking. I really liked it. Still prefer The Vegetarian though to this, so I think because of that I might have given this 4 out of 5 stars, because I just didn't think it was on the same level as The Vegetarian. But then again, The Vegetarian is an actual novel. This is more like a series of little, you know, thoughts and stuff. But I really liked it, and I always know how much I like a book by checking the front page of it and seeing how much I've written in it. So yeah, really good, really good book. Next, I read this book called This Is How You Survive by Lana Rafaela Sindrick. Now, I believe this is a self-published book. I might be wrong, but I came across it because I saw a little picture of one of the poems, I think on Facebook, or I don't know, it might have been Twitter, and I fell in love with that poem so much that I had to then look it up to see where it had come from and stuff. And I got this book. It's pretty short. It's a short collection of poetry, and oh my god, guys, this really spoke to me. It's what I needed. I've not been feeling my best this year. I think that's like, unfortunately, how a lot of us are feeling at the moment. So I needed something like this to just, I don't know, make me feel like I'm not alone. And this one just really, like, you can see from the start, again, there were so many bits that I underlined, like, oh, so great. This is a poetry collection that I will definitely go back to. It literally does what it says on the book. It helps you survive, you know, when you're at your lowest, which I have been, and I definitely was last month as well. Sometimes I would read some of the poems on here and I would just cry over them, because I would be like, oh my god, you're right. Like, yeah, you know, I need to think differently. There is hope. And I don't really know what to say. I'm pretty sure the author of this, Lana, is quite young. I think she wrote this when she was about 23 or something. It's really good though. Like, I wouldn't say it's perfection. Like, I'm not gonna say this is like a literary phenomenon, but it's kind of just what I needed last month. And it's, like I said, something that I will go back to whenever I feel really down. It's like a hug in a book. Like, it's almost like this little book is your friend, and it will remind you every now and again that like life is beautiful. So choosing this aside, let's go to the next book, the 5th book that I read last month, which is called Difficult Women. And I listened to this in an audio format. Like I said, this is by Roxane Gay. I'm a big fan of Roxane Gay's writing as well. I've read a couple of her books. I read Hunger by her earlier this year and I thought that was really good, but she's written some phenomenal books, like Bad Feminist being a good example of it. So yeah, I was interested to read this one and I thought it might be fun to like listen to it. So Roxane Gay normally writes non-fiction books, but this one is actually a collection of short stories, and I'm pretty sure they are meant to be fictional. And yeah, I didn't know when I first went into it, so initially I was a bit confused when I listened to the first story, and then we moved on to the second story. I was like, oh, it's not the same characters, and then it hit me. That's my own fault though. I never like to know too much about a book when I go into it. I just, if I like a title, I'm like, okay, this sounds interesting. But yeah, quickly I realized it is a collection of short stories, and I did like it. I think I gave it 3 out of 5 stars because I just didn't think it was consistent. I feel like there were some stories that I really liked. Like the first one I really enjoyed. The first one is so powerful, the first story in this collection. And then a few after that were just a bit meh, like I didn't really care. Then there were some good ones again, but like I think my problem with it was that most of the stories had the exact same theme. Like, I know it's like kind of meant to be that way because it's a short story collection, but they were just almost all the same. Like, most of them were just about women who were difficult, but their difficultness was just because they were obsessed with a man or like a lover, and they just didn't know how to deal with that. Like, I wanted to be shown different ways of like being difficult, or women doing other things. I don't know. Like I said, the first story was really powerful for me because it wasn't about women constantly being obsessed with men, if that makes sense. It was good though. Like, it's good writing. Roxane Gay writes really well, so I'm definitely gonna check out some of her other novels in the future, but it wasn't one of my favorites, this one. The last book that I read last month is A Year of Marvelous Ways by Sarah Winman. Now, this is what the book looks like. I loved this book so much that I actually put like a post about it on my Instagram. It's very rare that I do individual posts for the books that I read, but oh, this was just beautiful. Like, honestly, just looking at it right now is making me want to reread this straight away. So shout out to my friend Sam for actually gifting me this book, because this has been a book that I'd been wanting to read for ages, and I just for some reason hadn't bought it. I hadn't come around to getting it, and she sent this to me for my birthday a few months ago, and I finally read it. And Sarah Winman, like, I don't think I can explain to you how beautiful her writing is. Like, I'm getting emotional just talking about it. So I'd read one of Sarah Winman's other novels, Tin Men, about 3 years ago, and I fell in love with that book. It's still one of my favorite books of all time, so if you haven't checked out Tin Man, do so. But this was actually, I believe, published before Tin Men, and it's a book that's not really plot driven. It's more about feelings. It's more about thoughts and ideas and beautiful sentences and sentences that make you think. Again, there were so many lines on here that I was just underlining, and sometimes I would read a sentence or a paragraph and I would literally have to take a moment to think about it and let myself kind of absorb it, like all the words and all the beautifulness about it. I can't speak highly enough of this book. It really spoke to my soul. Again, this book, as well as like this one, came at a right time for me. It was like I had a best friend in this book. It was telling me that things are going to be okay. It was showing me the ways in which the world is beautiful. The characters in there, some of them, just some of the things they say, how they go through life. It's about human connection as well. It's about how important it is to be kind to each other, to support each other. It's about life. It's about growing old. It's about regrets. It's about healing. It's about grief. It's about so much. I honestly don't think I'm like explaining it very well, but just trust me that this is a phenomenal book. It restored my faith in humanity. Sarah Winman's writing is just out of this world. It's so lyrical and magical, and just, I don't understand how she writes so well. Like, I'm actually jealous of her. If I could write a book, I would want a book like this. I don't think I can give a better compliment to a book, but there you go. This was definitely my favorite book of last month, and this is the end of this video. So I hope you enjoyed this. Leave comments down below and let me know if you're interested to read any of the books that I mentioned, or if you've read any of them. I would love to discuss them with you. Of course, as always, feel free to follow me on Goodreads, because then you'll be completely up to date with all the books that I'm reading as and when I read them. And follow me on Instagram as well if you want to just chat about books, or if you have recommendations. I'm always like open to them. Thank you so much for watching, guys, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.